Welcome back to another exciting episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where today we interview Nick from MinMax Minis. Stick around, we have an awesome conversation. Nick, thank you for joining me today in the murder basement. I am at an angle so I think you can actually see the Halloween mask that's on the wall behind me. So it's getting spookier.
Good.
But thank you for joining me today.
Spooky. Thank you for having me. It needs to be spooky or I'm hanging up.
Right. So Nick, you have been doing MinMax Minis for how long now?
Pretty much 2 years. So I started painting minis 2 years ago and pretty much started doing commissions right away.
Right away. I think you and I had a very similar arc for that, because I started painting about 2 years ago, and actually I need to apologize early on in this, because I remember very early on I was like late night messaging people. I was like, oh, they are painting Rising Sun. I did not know that you were a woman at the time, and I never wanted to make you feel uncomfortable. So if my late night emails and messages coming through were ever across the line, I am very sorry about that.
Oh no, I'm always mistaken as a dude on Instagram. Like, somebody just messaged me the other day, like, hey dude, that looks great, brother, check this out. Like, and I don't even correct them because I think it's funny. And I mean, if that's the default mini painter in people's heads as a male, I'm fine with it. I'm not offended. So I do have an Instagram story like highlighted where it just says I'm a lady reminder, but it's no big deal.
Well, it's awesome. I know at the time, I think you and I both, like, within minutes posted our Oni of Skulls, and they were like, I mean, yours was better. You were just like a better painter than me in general, but it was the only other one I had seen online where I was like, oh my God, someone actually did the steps that I did. And that's when I had to message you. And I just remember just being like totally floored by your style.
Oh, well, thank you. I know that's more probably one of the first ones that I did, so I appreciate that. I don't know if mine was actually better than yours, but I'm going to take the compliment anyway. Yeah, I will look for references for anything, so anytime somebody's doing the same mini that I am, I'm always looking for ideas, and I love to connect like that. And look for what other people have done well, or look what they haven't been so successful for, so I can apply that with what I'm doing.
Right. Well, and that always seems to be the issue when you are going into like an art design blind, is that you're never the first person to paint this mini. So therefore you can look at everybody else's things and being like, I really like this part, I really don't like this, or I see what they were going for, maybe I can improve on this. And I think that that's what has really pushed this craft, this hobby, this art form, like so far forward. You know, in the last 2 years, seeing the amount of people who are just amazing painters come out is unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think we can all influence each other and kind of raise that standard. Once you've seen a mini painted to a level that you didn't know was possible, then you can, try to attain that. Even like, if you don't know that it's possible, you might limit your own mindset as to what you can do. And I know I would, for sure. And I think just the internet in general is great for that, because we can look at each other's styles, get so much influence. Even Pinterest has tons of minis these days. It's everywhere. So that's why oh yeah, that was my first goal as a mini painter. Was like, my first goal of success is going to be to find myself on Pinterest where somebody else has pinned one of my minis, and it did happen. I was so excited. Awesome.
I haven't been on Pinterest in so long. I think it's because I have like PTSD of remodeling our downstairs kitchen and bathroom, and like we lived on Pinterest for like 3 or 4 months, and by the end of it, I was like, I never want to use this platform again.
Yeah, I don't use it that much anymore. Same reason, remodeling the kitchen. But when I first started, that's where I found most of my examples. And then later I found Instagram and like miniature painting hashtags and stuff like that.
Yeah, that has been the thing that I've really gotten into is the hashtags. And I follow a ton of hashtags of like, I love seeing Night Haunt models from Age of Sigmar. And so I just follow that because the OSL glows that people are doing with all the spirits, like it's blowing me away. Things that I wouldn't have thought possible. Some little small guys, I'm like, man, that's awesome. So cool.
Yeah, I see some really cool ones with that, where like the rays are shining through like a graveyard or something, and it's so good. Like the shadows are done so well.
So what is your history with art? Like, how did you get into this? Were you an artist before, or were you just like, you know what? I need a new thing. This is going to be my new thing.
Did end up being my new thing, but I also was an artist before. So I've like always been drawing since I was like 2 years old. I have an audio recording of me at 2 saying I always draw people. So I've always been drawing and doing art. I went to college for illustration for 2 years, and then I financially couldn't do it anymore and I left. But I've always been doing art on the side and mostly portraits and stuff like that, but nothing that I ever really loved or connected with until 2 years ago. My fiance loves board games, and we thought for Valentine's Day we'd have fun and like paint minis together, because it's what I like with art and what he likes with board games. And we painted some Rising Sun minis, and as soon as I put one up on, like, first of all, it was really fun. But as soon as I put one up on Facebook, somebody was like, how much do you charge? And I was like, I don't know. This was my first mini. I don't know. So, but I was like, but I'll do one. So I think I charged him $10 to paint the Hand of Doom from Dungeons and Degenerates, I think it's called, or something like that. And he was like, this is worth like 20 at least. Like, he gave me a bunch more money. I was like, thank you. Like, thank you for not taking advantage of me. And then I just kept painting stuff. So then I started finding minis like, oh, I want to paint that. I want to paint that. And like, it was a whole new world to me. I wasn't familiar with like any minis or models. I didn't know anything about Warhammer. That I like found Kingdom Death, and that was amazing. Well, so within a month of starting to paint, I had like 2 Gloomhaven commissions. It was so fun.
Oh, wow. So like instantly people really took on to your online presence.
Really quickly, yeah. It was kind of awesome and overwhelming. So I had 2 at the same time of Gloomhaven. And so I hadn't even painted more than 10 models by the time I got a Gloomhaven commission. And so I was like tripling, like quadrupling the amount of work I'd ever done just in those. But I mean, they knew what I could do. I was very honest about my experience and stuff, and like they were super happy with it. So that was really cool.
That is fantastic. My story was very similar to that. I got Kingdom Death first, and then a buddy of mine was like, I like what you're doing. And like, I look at my first Kingdom Death models, and they are bad. They were objectively bad. They showed like promise for sure, but he was like, I like what you do. I need you to do my Rising Sun like set. And so I started on that. And I think it was by the time I figured out how to use the airbrush was when like I went from being like kind of all right to okay, I can hold my own as far as like blends and like brightness, because like I understood the way light should reflect off of stuff. And that was one thing that I noticed with yours, is that you were really specific with how you lit your models, and always doing like the NMM style on your models. They tell a visual narrative looking at them, so you could just like say, this is the focal point, this is the second part in the story, and like your Lion God being one of the first ones where I was just like, damn, that is so good. It's so good.
Thank you. That was the one that got pinned.
Yeah. Nice.
I love that Lion God one, especially because around the face, it has the female form, not just the male. So for
Yeah.
for
Well,
Kingdom
and I
Death,
love that.
that's
I love
pretty
it's got like hands coming out, like pulling it back, exposing
Yeah.
it, and it's so there's something about it that's really beautiful in how macabre it is. You're
Yeah,
just like, oh,
Kingdom Death was like my second commission after Gloomhaven, and I wanted it so badly because I found those images online. I didn't even realize that the pinups and the monsters were from the same game for a long time, and I was like pitting them like, these are the coolest models, having no idea that they were related. Once I was able to get a commission for that, it was awesome. I was like, this is my dream already to paint these. I am dark. I'm super into weird, twisted gore. Like, I just love it.
and Kingdom Death is a well for the twisted and the dark. I'm thrilled that they keep on producing cool models, even though I don't play the game anymore. I still buy everything. I know I shouldn't. Like, I'm under a pile of gray plastic now, but I'm like, yeah, I really want the king, and next I want the gambler, and it just, you can't not. They're just so cool.
I've honestly never played Kingdom Death. I have only painted the models, but I still have some of the models just for myself because for Christmas my fiance bought me the Halloween models. So I got a girl sitting on a pumpkin full of male parts for Christmas. So that was the most romantic present you could ever imagine getting.
Right? I actually think that is the least disgusting out of all of the pinups. The one where the Easter one where she's in the cake and just covered in like the icing. I look at that and I'm like, that's not icing. That's
not icing.
Everything about that is like that bridge too far for me. I'm like, I don't know about that one.
And based on what you know of the other models, that's probably a reasonable thing. We're in another game that's on you to associate that, but on this game, that's yeah, pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too. So I know that you did graphic design before because I've seen you like pull up your like your case studies and stuff to do like the two-dimensional copper and like, you know, use that for your painting. How much of that art background do you pull from for your stuff now?
A ton. So I've done some graphic design. I also started really getting into about 4 years ago, like right before the minis. I was trying to get more into digital illustration, and that I learned a lot about different color schemes. Like, I don't know, digital has a completely different color wheel. I don't know if you know that, than like the regular color wheel. So I learned about that, and I started applying some of that to my minis, and that is part of where the color choices come from. But I finally realized that if I didn't plan the colors out in advance, I would spend way more time correcting it as I started painting it and didn't like what I was doing. So now every single mini that I paint, I put into Photoshop, take a picture of it, and plan it out. Sometimes a little more lazy than the other one, but it saves me from having to repaint it. I also even sometimes do that with a mini that I'm working on and I just don't love. I'll take a picture of that, put it into Photoshop, see how I can fix the contrast and stuff, because it's easier to erase in Photoshop than it is to erase on the mini. It's a lot easier.
Of course.
So a lot of that planning is super helpful.
Well, you use that on like my Warfare Weekend piece that I entered in. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. There's something wrong with this, and I need another eye. And you went through and you just like toned down the gold, and I just kind of like copied it. And it was one of the things. It was one of the first things that they commented on how good of a job I did. And I was like, yeah, I didn't do that. That was all Nick. She figured this out, and I was, I couldn't be more like appreciative of that, because I would have never got there.
That was awesome. And first of all, I can send a lot of people pictures of what to paint. That doesn't mean they can all do it. So if you're able to execute it, that means a lot. But also, like, because mini painting is so new to me, I'm still learning how to communicate what I'm learning or how I paint in my style. So it's way easier for me to just do it. I wish that I was at the point, and hopefully I will be one day, where I could say, hey, you want to switch that contrast and consider this light source. But for now, I'm like, let me just draw on your drawing for a minute here, and then I'll send it back.
Well, have you ever ran into giving someone feedback like that, like verbally or in the text, where you just come off like an asshole and you're just like, I'm really not trying to like criticize what you're doing? Because I find that that's kind of my problem when like someone's asking me and I'm being very direct about what they're asking. I don't know how to like tone it down to not like, give them the little like slap across the face, like, because I just expect everybody to understand like art critiques, where they are very like forward and harsh, and maybe not harsh, but like they need you very direct, right? So I've definitely had a couple where I've had to go back afterwards and apologize, where I'm like, shit, I am sorry if that came off wrong, and everybody seemed pretty cool, but like. I come from an art background, even though I didn't go to art school. I'm around artists all day long, and we've learned to be really sharp with each other, because otherwise we waste a lot of time, like walking around everybody's feelings. And I feel that like the mini community isn't quite at that level to take criticism in a way that is that direct yet.
I don't think it is, probably, including myself. I am super sensitive. Sometimes I'll want to know what I should work on. I still won't ask anybody. And what I do instead, because I'll just be like, I'm too sensitive for this right now, I'll find like a masterpiece that's similar in like metals, colors, cloths, and do a side-by-side collage in my phone of what I have versus what they have, and then it becomes super obvious sometimes. So sometimes when I'm too sensitive to ask for super hard feedback, I just have to do that for myself. So I haven't been probably that critical with people without softening it, because that's just, I don't know. I've worked a lot on communication skills and things like that, and trying to compliment somebody before you sneak in that, like, and by the way, you should change everything about this.
Everything about this. I really love your effort, kid, but
like two compliments before that critique usually can soften it. So I don't think I've offended a lot of people, but if I have, like, that's pretty reasonable. I mean, that's how art school was. Like, you just tore people apart. Or tore the work apart. I usually try to tear myself apart first as I presented it, and then everybody's would be more positive. Like, so that kind of just, so I'd be like, I don't know what I was doing here. They'd be like, no, it's really good. So that's a trick if you want really good feedback, is to just demolish your own work first. And then everything else will be better than that.
Yeah, it definitely softens the blow and allows them to know that you are already ready for the negative, and so that they don't have to go there, which I use that quite a bit as well in life.
Yeah.
So I recently submitted my Creature Caster Resin Beast entry on a live feed. And have you ever watched any of Jason and Creature Caster's live feeds at all on Twitch?
I have not. Yeah.
He gave me some of the best feedback I have ever gotten from a stranger, in a way that I was like shocked that I wasn't like having an anxiety attack being openly criticized in a chat. Like, I was like ready for it to happen. And so I think that if you ever need somebody, he might be a really good tool for people like us, because he knows what the hell he's talking about, and he can be really direct, but like, he didn't even come close to like saying something that pierced me. I was like, dude, this was the best experience I have ever had.
Yeah, there's a way to get feedback that's very specific, and it acknowledges that you understand the project without being like, I don't know what you were thinking here. There's ways to do that without being personal, and I think sometimes people can do the criticism with throwing in personal jabs, like, you have a complete lack of understanding. So it's more about, I would say part of it is keeping it about the project and not about what the hell are you thinking. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So
So that's
you
good.
haven't done any competition painting, have you?
I've never done a competition. No. Usually because
Why
I'm
is
wait.
that?
Number one, I'm too scared to do a competition. I think I'm actually really competitive, and I don't know if I'll be able to make it if I don't win. Uh, um, and also, every competition I just see as time that I won't be making money, to be honest. Like, I don't have a lot of income, so my commission time is like super important to me. And I'm like, that seems kind of fun, but at the same time, I could be just throwing out some D&D minis, even if I just put them on eBay and bringing in some income. So honestly, that's kind of it. It's the time, and you have to buy the piece, and maybe you'll win and get some money, but like, it's not that. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, the chance for us here in the States to win money is like dwindling ever since like Crystal Brush disappeared, and like none of the Golden Demon stuff come with any money. Resin Beast has like a $3,000 prize pot, which is amazing, and I'm
Yeah.
way into that. But I know that I am not at the skill level to win said $3,000. So it's one of those things that I mainly just do it to push me because when I'm working a commission piece, I do what I think I go to the level that I know will make the client happy, where I feel that I have not like wasted my time, but also I know that I'm not like practicing new stuff on other people's stuff. Like I play it fairly safe when I'm doing commission pieces.
Okay. I do not. And
Okay.
it's kind of a problem with my time management. My time management is trash. If I had better time management, maybe I could do some more competition and stuff. But like,
Sure.
I have one level of painting, and that is my very best. And I've tried to do less, and I really can't. I just hate it, and I can't send it out. And then I end up spending more time correcting it. So the only time I really do a just good enough piece is if it's for myself. I've done a couple D&D pieces for my own characters. Those are like the only lower quality ones. So that is kind of revealing if you're like, oh, she doesn't have any better in her. I mean, that's just the reality is I go to town on my minis. Like, I put all of my heart and skills into them. Like, all my first NMM was in commissions. Everything, OSL commissions. Like, I just go out there. And it's been very appreciated by the clients.
Well, I mean, you make beautiful pieces, and if they aren't appreciative, they don't deserve your effort because, like, still, I go back to the fact that, like, you're still one of my favorite painters, and it's because, like, I can still see you getting better, like, because you are so new. And I think because we started at the same time, we followed these two different trajectories, and then we both split off in kind of different ways, where you leaned way heavy into the commission thing, and I went more into the way of trying to get better for competition. But yeah, I find that my effort for the client, even though like I put a lot into it, I don't feel that same sort of like love for the piece. And I know that like almost everybody's expectation is like way lower than mine. And so knowing that, I temper how much time I put into stuff.
I somehow have the opposite of the love for the piece. Every time I try to do a personal one, I don't have the same passion for it as when I do one for somebody else. So like, if somebody sends me a Hero Forge, I want to know the name of their character. I want to know the class. I want to know the background, because that might change the color of gold that I use, like, or brass, if it's a little lower, he has a little lower income. And like, I get so into them and so excited for the other people. Like, I love it. Every time I try to work on one of my own, I'm just like, I don't know. This is fine. I love helping other people's ideas.
It's just a little rat. It's fine. Yeah, right?
Fine. Like, it's whatever. Yeah. But other people's stuff, I love.
So I remember back in the day, you said that you take about 40 hours on every single piece that comes through. And I remember just being like, oh, good Lord. oh good lord, like am I doing it wrong or is she doing it wrong? The time there is like I was like I can't look at this one thing that long. And then you said you took a class and it changed the way you look at like speed and time. And could you tell me kind of about that process, the revealing of like your ways to like your new style?
Yes. So I still am like super slow, but fortunately I could say that I got 7 reapers done in about 44 hours recently. So I don't know how that compares to other people's, but that was huge for me. Where in the past that would have been like one, like the hand from Kingdom Death for me, it would take about 40 hours.
Oh my
Because
god.
I'm still learning though too. So if I'm learning as I'm going, then I'm like making mistakes. So part of it is that, and part of it is fear of, I don't know, doing something wrong. But when I took Sergio Calvo's class, he was super hard on me for painting too slow. Why are you painting so slow? He'd just be like, why are you doing this? I never have an answer. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm painting so slow. And so his process is more like less wet blending. So you're doing the darkest first, you're doing heavy layers and just building on top. And then you blend with the airbrush afterwards. And the anxiety that I got from him pushing me to call me out for being so slow, also with the technique, helped me to drop my times like in half.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes I still slip back into it, and then I'll go back because I have Sergio's Patreon and I'll watch his videos again. I literally did yesterday morning because I noticed that I was like getting too into my head and taking too much time on work. So I went back and watched some of his videos yesterday morning to get myself like kind of recalibrate.
That's awesome. I've watched some of his videos on YouTube, and I've thought about doing the Patreon thing, but I'm too lazy. Like I'm in like 3D printing ones, and I don't do anything with them, and I wonder why I spend the money every month. But I love his process because he does. It's just like he floods the piece with paint. It's like indiscriminate, I learned a couple things just from watching them, especially on big models where you're just like, just get paint on it. Stop thinking about it because you're going to go back over this again. This first coat, if you don't like it, you're painting over it. It doesn't matter.
Well,
And
I was
oh,
just
go.
saying, life also isn't perfect. Lighting is never like a straight, rarely is anything like a perfectly straight line or anything like that. So by having these like arbitrary shapes and where your paint is lying, that's going to be more realistic.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But I look at models like his, and I have the utmost respect for him. But I also look at him, and I'm like, not not even going to put in the time on every single piece to get there, because if I did it, I would be like staring at these models for like forever. Like I'm still too slow to put that much detail into every piece. And I have friends who like they like work even their little infantry guys to the nth degree. I'm like, man, nobody's looking at those. Those are going to be off the table in
Yeah.
no time. Just blast through them. Like, hit your character, hit your big things, and then all the rest, like, phone it in. And I have troubles. I can't get out of that rhythm.
So I'm starting to learn, like especially people like, why aren't you working on these big competition pieces and stuff? Everybody needs to set their own path as far as what's important to them. And if you try to be everything, you're probably going to disappoint a lot of people, including yourself. So that's like, I don't really do a lot of tabletop quality, like large armies or anything like that, because it would be a new skill for me to learn. And obviously time isn't my forte. So I found that just doing higher end, even if it's like little 28 millimeter Reaper or Dark Sword, that's what I like to do. So I think that's good to recognize what's important to you.
Yeah. So what are your favorite commissions to do?
Probably Dungeons and Dragons characters. Any of the small ones, or like even somebody turned a sci-fi Twilight pinup, I think, into a Dungeons or a Starfinder character the other day, and she had this huge backstory of being an exotic dancer on a spaceship. Like, it was awesome. Like, I loved everything about it, and he was so specific about what colors he wanted and everything, and it was one of the best minis I've ever done. Like, I think I'm such an extrovert and I'm such a people person that it's the client aspect, the commission aspect, that like makes me feel fulfilled in a way that I have never been in my life, honestly. Like, in any of the art that I've done, I've always had this feeling while I was doing art that it wasn't the right story. I wasn't conveying the like perfect, like, giving myself and conveying like this artistic idea. But with minis, I really do, because I know that like I'm creating this story that the other person understands too, and with the story they've created, they can explain it to their friends. And that's my favorite, really.
That's awesome. And I've realized that too with this medium, is that like, coming from a music background, people are only so complimentary of what you're doing. But when you do something like this that has that human interaction, like you are doing something for someone else, it makes it like so much better. And like the second I got into miniature painting was the second I got out of playing live music, because the feedback is so genuine. And I often have to wonder if people are not like taking the steps to push themselves to where they can do this and get better, or are they really just that happy that I provided the service for them? It's an interesting thing, because for me, this medium is so fun and wide open, and to see people not want to try it themselves, like, kind of makes me sad. And so like every time I get a commission, while I'm really happy to have some extra money, I also am just like, are you sure you don't want to try this? Because this thing is freaking sweet. And and it's so weird to see how people react to that. Like, they've thought about these things, they've created the story in their head, but yet they aren't taking that step to actually try to make the character. It's very interesting to me.
Well, it makes sense to me that everybody's got to know what their priorities are. Like, I went to school for illustration, and yet I've been working on mini so much that I've kind of lost a little bit of that. And when I was planning a wedding, I had a custom illustration of like me, my fiance, and our dogs commissioned, because I was like, you know what? I'd rather spend time on the minis and have somebody do what they're already doing and do it well. And it would take me forever to try to replicate a style of like whatever the Etsy illustrations, like wedding stuff was. So like, sure. It's just a matter of like, I wanted the highest quality and rather spend my time doing what I'm doing. So maybe, they'd rather have fun doing something else. Oh, and that's not their thing. So like, they know you got it.
Right. Are you going to paint yourselves in little minis for your cake or cupcakes or whatever you're doing?
I have no idea what we are doing, but I will be painting minis. Whatever happens, there will be minis. I'm thinking about possibly mine being like a little goblin, because I've always loved the World of Warcraft goblins. Like, that's my thing. And then he might have to be Winston from Overwatch. He's gonna have to find out.
Just like blend the two genres together.
Yeah, it's Blizzard either way, so like it's the same world kind of. If you play Hearthstone, it is.
Totally. Well, that's awesome. So, what are your least favorite parts of commissions? Because I know that there are moments where we all look at it and be like, "What the hell was I thinking? What am I doing right now?"
Well, recently I did the Dragon King from Kingdom Death, and the Dragon King, the Phoenix, and the Lonely Tree in the same styles that I did the first time. And that was like 100 hours altogether, probably about 100 hours. And it was exactly the same. And somewhere in that Lonely Tree, I was like, I'm never painting this style again. Like, you can get a Lonely Tree from me, but recently somebody asked me about a Dragon King, and I was like, I will do it, but I will never do black and red again. Or we have to change the patterns. Like, I can't do it the same, or I will get totally bored. Yeah.
Sure.
So say repetition.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I have a bunch of these little guys sitting here in front of me, and I'm painting like all their like blue details, and I'm just like, Why am I doing the repetition? Like my brain, I just always want to paint something new, and like
Okay.
I don't think I could copy the like, especially a big monster. Oh, I think I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I took it on, which I did, I liked it. It was fun seeing the progression, but it was still really frustrating. So I've never done a competition. I've also never painted an army of any kind.
I will say armies are for the birds. I am like really loving the idea of like tiny skirmish games because this is garbage. I love the models. I think they're cool. I love the game, but I'm like I need to find shortcuts through this because I don't want to be here.
Oh, and that's no way to be. You don't want to dread what you're doing, but like, yeah, I one time realized like I've never painted an army, and if I could keep that going, I will. But if I can make some money on it and I don't have anything else, I also will learn how to paint armies.
Right. So that was going to be kind of my next question. I found that most people in the hobby, in commission miniature painting, are really secretive about what they charge. And do you have like a set number that you are looking at per hour, or do you have like do you look at it as like a per piece thing? Like this one is going to be X dollars.
I have a goal of what I want to make per hour, and it's not that great of an amount anyway, but I also know that I'm slower. So I have to think about what a regular person, a regular mini painter might take, and usually try to base it on that. And then I set the goal. I record all of my hours for every piece, how much time I'm taking, how much it ends up breaking down to per hour, so I can go, actually, I didn't make this much off of this huge project. I made twice as much off of this like little dwarf that I sold on eBay. So I'm really into like analyzing what's the most effective way to try to make money. Like this is the only thing I do. And so I think that also can add time-wise and also commission-wise. This is the only income that I have. So it's really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Before this, I was like, I have not had a great time because of anxiety issues and stuff, keeping a regular job. So like, if I got some illustration commissions, that was my income. Like, it's not a whole ton. So this has changed my life as far as that goes too. I don't know where I was going with that.
But so like I always look at it as I try to go for like $15 an hour is like kind of my target. Because any lower than that, and I'm not covering the materials and just all the like the extra stuff that goes around. And even though like I might not actually paint for a full hour on something, I spend more time than I'm actually charging into the thing. I look at it where I'm like, it's competing in competitions and winning awards. Is that what makes us be able to charge more? Or is it just a confidence thing? Because like I have friends who are like regular two-dimensional artists or sculptors, and some of them I'm like, you don't charge enough. And then there's some of them like, you charge way too much. And I don't know what it is, because like like painting minis, like this is tracing. I'm not doing anything here but tracing. This is paint by numbers. But doing like the texture on like the Dragon King and creating this like piece of plastic into like a real living breathing monster on the table, that is where the actual artistic nature comes in, and that is like the hardest thing to quantify. So I kudos to you for like doing this as your everyday job, because I think I would go crazy trying to like, this day I feel like I did a good job, this day I didn't. I need more stability that way.
I think I do that somewhat, and I'm pretty hard on myself, but I'm always watching like Tony Robbins or whatever, like motivational things, like how can I life hack to do things the best, how can I stay motivated, like stuff like that. I forgot what we were talking about. I have brain fart.
Just talking about the way that we price things and the way the value structure of what we do in this community.
I realized I was charging too little when I was constantly booked with commissions. I realized, so for me, it's supply and demand. Like if every time I tell somebody like, here's the price, they go, that sounds great. I'm like, uh-oh, that was too enthusiastic. Like I got a little bit like, okay. So if I realized like I just need to keep raising my prices until people started saying no. That's how I took it, until it was too much. Because otherwise, like, that's how you gauge it, is what people are willing to pay is what your art is worth. That's pretty much it for me.
Sure. So do you do like a minimum order? Like I have $100 minimum order. Like if you're gonna do something, it's gonna be $100. And like so like I'll do like 4 of the like survivors from Kingdom Death for $100. And because I'm going to paint them all the exact same way, and that's going to be my mentality on that. Because if I'm doing stuff for like $25 and having to ship things or any of that, I start finding like I go crazy, and I'll end up with stuff and I'll lose it.
I don't think I have a set minimum, but probably a mental minimum, which would be like, for me, it's probably like 60 to 70. But I just, nothing would come up under that. I don't think that I don't even consider it if it's smaller than that. And for a Hero Forge, like a D&D, I am charging anywhere, if it's super simple, like in the 70s. If it's higher, up to like 130, like would be the price thing. Like, if it has a lot of freehand or OSL or changing the base or something like that.
Mount or something. Sometimes those Hero Forge minis get a little like involved. I did a couple of them. I was like, these are really fun. I don't understand like the template as much, like, because it feels like I'm doing like the same pose over and over again. But I do like them as models. I think for what they are, they're pretty sharp.
Some people absolutely hate them. I have a friend who thinks sorry, my dogs are running around. I have a friend who thinks the Hero Forge are the absolute worst because they're so simple. But I just see that as a challenge to like, well, I got to make it less simple. Like, let's paint it and make the details pop. So that's that. I think because I paint at a higher level, there ends up being a minimum anyway, because there's nothing I'm really going to take on it and paint for like $20 on its own, unless it's part of like, probably not $20 on anything, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really have any single pieces that I would charge that much for. So it just doesn't really come up, I don't think.
Right. I find if I'm doing like that many small little things, it works all right, because I don't know. Do you do often paint and batch, or is it literally just one piece at a time?
I'll do a couple things I painted in batches. Like the recent Reaper commission that I did, there was like 3 skeletons that just had like a sword or like a shield, and they were all kind of similar. So I did those all at the same time. But I don't think I've ever done more than like 4. Like the Kingdom Death survivors, the starting survivors, those I would do in a batch. Yeah.
It just makes sense, and that's how I'm like doing these armies right now. I don't know. They can't be great for forever, and we're locked inside for a really long time. So it's time to go through that.
Inside. So like, I'm getting so much done right now because like, if people are watching this later, it is the COVID quarantine time. So my fiance is laid off, and as soon as he got laid off, he was like, "You don't have to clean anymore." And so I'm like, I've got more freedom than ever and more time, because it's now the only thing that I have to do. It's pretty awesome. So I'm like more inspired and just having a blast and productive than I have been in a long time.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad that he stepped up for you like that, because that's it always, like, I did the opposite thing. I just got depressed and slept a lot until like I like could get up, and now I'm like fine and normal. But that first week was the worst, absolutely the worst.
Well, I did get depressed too, but now I'm back on track, so it'll happen. I'll get depressed again, and then I won't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, this whole like quarantine thing, this is not the end. We all think that at the end of this 30 days we're getting out of it. I am steadying myself for another like 30 days after that, because we are still on the uphill slope.
We're not gonna be done. I was like, I'm not getting it. I'm waiting for the vaccination. See y'all in 2021. Like, I just assumed. But I'm kind of a homebody anyway, so my day-to-day life has, other than the cleaning, has like not changed that much. So that's a little bit alarming. But now all of you live in my world, so welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Are you finding that your clients are still wanting to do work with you through this?
Yeah, a lot of them are. Well, actually, there's a couple I haven't heard from, but I've still been busy, and that's what I really care about. I'm still busy. I kicked out a dwarf the other day, put it on eBay, and it sold within 24 hours. So, I don't know. People have time. You know, not everybody is going to be struggling. Some people will have savings, and people of all incomes, I think, are nerds. So, I mean, we've got that going for us.
And D&D,
I would pay for myself.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that I would pay for myself, but other people do, and that's awesome because they might want the higher level, and that's awesome.
Well, and D&D people are not like me as a war gamer, you know, like board gamer. They buy a book, and so when they spend money on like wormwood accessories and stuff like that, you know, $150 for a dice tray, where I'm like, that is amazing craftsman and is absolutely insane to spend money on. That they didn't spend, you know, the extra $300 on models. They have one model, they have their book, they want their nice dice, and that is something that I putting that value judgment on other people is a real failure on my part to realize how broad this hobby is, because it really is. The sky is the limit.
Yeah, exactly. Like people of all, like I said, all incomes or whatever, are interested in D&D or nerddom. Some people just like collecting the minis because they're really cool. I've had people buy Rising Sun ones for that. And so I can't limit what I would pay for, like, because I can't limit my prices based on what I would pay for versus what they're worth. And you know, I do paint on the higher level. It is for people who are interested in that and can afford it. Are you still there? Oh,
I'm there. Somebody, yeah, no, somebody tried calling me. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying that, like, I do paint at the higher level. It's not for everybody, and I just accept that. And actually, I've been understanding that and putting that out there right away has made it so that I've really gotten to enjoy almost every mini that I've painted, because I think if I were just doing tabletop or tabletop plus, I wouldn't be as happy. I do have an exception where if I play D&D with you, I will paint your stuff at that level, so I don't have to see your ugly minis. That is my
That's that's a really good rule, because I think if I was looking across the table at stuff, I'd be like, give me that. Next session, it'll be better. Like, let's elevate our game.
Right, that's a favor to me, so I don't have to see, you know, your unpainted mini that I know could be so awesome. So it's, you know, it's helping myself really.
Sure. What are like some of your favorite tools that you use while doing commission miniature painting? Like favorite brushes, paint lines. What are your go-tos?
Okay. Favorite paint line is probably just Vallejo model color, but also scale 75. It wasn't until I took that class with Sergio Calvo that he was pointing out that game color and then the fantasy and games, because those are the two brands that I use the most, that those are high, like really glossy. And so then I had to start cutting my stuff with, I use AK Ultra Matte all the time to cut the gloss in any of my paints. And I realized doing that, I could see the mistakes better. And
are you actually like mixing it into the paint?
Yep, I'm mixing it right into the paint. And Vince Venturella was sitting across from me, and he's the one that said it was really good and let me borrow his. And now, like, I'm addicted, and it's kind of hard to find right now. And today I was already looking for it because I'm getting low. So that, and then also my favorite brushes, I've tried a lot of them, are Da Vinci, but not the highest level. It's like this next level down, and you can get a package of them for like 6 of them for like $30 on Amazon, and they're my all-time favorites. So
really?
It's like Usuri Sable or something, like Ussuri or something like that. I know I spelled that wrong, but they are absolutely my favorites. They're the perfect amount of thin and like delicate, but also have a heavy enough body. They are for me. Everybody's got their different amount of like what they need to like work with them, and those are my favorites.
Sure. I've been using the Hanover group, which I believe is the Handover brushes. They are I think they're like the factory seconds from everybody, because like they all look the same. All of the brushes are the same length. All of the like, it looks like all of the Winsor Newton stuff. It looks like all the Raphael stuff. So I'm guessing that they're made in the same factory. But every once in a while, you'll have like the lead hair that's like, a millimeter longer than it should be. So you have to go through and sometimes like trim them up just a little bit. But they're like super cheap. And I get them. I have to order them from England because that's the only place that carries them. But I can't spend $17 on a single brush because I will chew them up. I go through them faster than I probably should.
Yeah, and actually, I probably would spend more, but fortunately, those Da Vinci's that I like are cheaper. Like that's just fortuitous. That's pretty awesome. Now, I just want to complain really quick that minis that are sculpted really roughly can sometimes mess up my brushes, and that's when I have to pull out the cheaper ones or the older ones. Like, to be honest, Gloomhaven minis are so rough, like they will tear up my brushes.
Yeah, some of that plastic is really brutal, and I always am just like, okay, I have this like weasel set that isn't the sable brushes. It's they're really weird and thick, or maybe that's like goat or something. It's a bizarre brush, and I'll use those for like if I'm just doing regular TMM, regular metals, and like weird rougher plastics, bases, things where I'm just like jabbing paint on it. I'm like, yeah. Like the good brushes, I don't do that for anymore. Mentioned that you did airbrush stuff? Do you use airbrush quite a bit?
Yeah, I use the airbrush a lot. Actually, I was very hesitant to buy an airbrush because I didn't want to be an airbrush person. Somebody asked me what is that one time, and I was like, the person who would like have a shirt airbrushed, or like like a van with like a tiger painted on it. And then I got the Kingdom Death Commission and did not know how big those were. And when they arrived, I was like, I think I have to buy an airbrush.
Yeah,
like, just for the time. Oh my gosh! So then I bought an airbrush and I learned how to use it pretty quickly. I think the Lion God might be one of the first ones that I used it on. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that helped a ton. It helps to get the lighting. And then now I use it a lot for the blending. And I know you use inks a lot too. You've actually, I think, turned me on to inks more than anybody else. And those can like tie the whole thing together with a light mist that kind of adds a filter. So even if your colors aren't perfectly tied, that's where the airbrush can come in and kind of save the day.
Yeah. The airbrush and inks have been one of those things that I didn't know I would use as much as I do. But like anytime I pull out the airbrush, I rarely thin down my regular paints. I just use inks, and so I do a ton of work with inks first. Then I varnish it so I don't accidentally reactivate it, and then I'll go back over and highlight and do all the like texture stuff. And it's crazy. It's crazy how much I feel way more productive with an airbrush, and I think that it gets that like volumetric light better than if I was like trying to go through and like I need to make this spot shiny and this spot shiny. Like I can just like blast down and then blend in.
And I think that's like the perfect way of doing it, because it gives this overall like feel. But if you only use the airbrush, sometimes it can look a little too perfect. And so that's where I like to add like a little bit of chaos with the brush. It's like a nice mix. And also the airbrush is amazing because you'll save a lot of money on primer if you can prime with the airbrush instead. Like you just save thousands, I believe.
Yeah. The Stynylrez primer is like my saving grace, and everybody complains about priming white on black, and I use the white Stynylrez on top of the black, and it's a little more speckly, but I never have problems with like the Zenithal prime coming up, or like what's that term when things collision. They don't get any weird color collisions off of it, and the speckles never seem to bother me. So I use that on literally everything now. And sometimes I'll just leave them grayscale because it's good enough for the time being.
Yeah, it just depends on. And now my friend Kevin Fannin came to Detroit area and taught a class, and since that class now I've been taking like just white and black, and after zenithal priming now I'm trying to go and like really pop the contrast in certain areas to draw the attention to, you know, focal points, which can help with composition and looking at things. So now I'm doing that before I paint too. And actually that can be really helpful too when tiny ones details get lost as you start painting. They can literally get like covered up with the coating of paint. So that's really cool too. I'm liking that a lot.
Yeah, that's for all of my like students that I'm teaching. I always am just like, I know that you don't want to spend the money on an airbrush, but you should spend the money on an airbrush if this is something that you're going to do, because even if you don't use this, like even if you don't thin your paints down enough where the white undercoat is like the way that makes it you know, tell that visual narrative, I was like, at least you can see what you're doing, because my eyes aren't good enough anymore to look at a model and go, oh, look at all these ridges, and I'm in this like dungeness basement. It's awful down here as far as light goes. I need all the help I can get. So
yeah, that's true, and I like that. But at the end of the day, I try to go the practical level and be like, think of how much 10 cans of black primer costs if you were to spray it. Okay, buy an airbrush just for that. It's like, it's economically a great idea in addition to the artistic benefits.
Yeah. Do you have any painters that you like? Hero worship is like, I think, the wrong term, because it seems like in this environment, all of us are really connected, and I can reach out to people and be like, you are fantastic, you are great. And at any given time, you can be at a gaming convention standing next to your hero, and they're just regular ass people. Are there any painters that you find that are your inspiration, your muse, that you just keep on going back to?
Oh no. When I met Sergio Calvo, he saw on Instagram how much I loved him and then made fun of me throughout the entire class that I was a super fan, which I was, but I don't want to be called out for it. Like I loved his work so much before I ever knew that he was teaching a class. And I was like, I don't know if he'd ever come to the United States, and like I'm Mexican anyway. I was like, what if I could learn Spanish and just like go on vacation there and like take a class with him personally? And then I found out he was teaching a class like 5 hours away from me, and within a week I was like, we got to go to Indiana, like we got to go. And I went to that class, and he picked on me the whole time. I'm absolutely a hero worshiper. Him, Angel or Angel Heraldez, I love, and Roman Lapat. I always forget how to pronounce that. Like I love his work.
Skin tones? Holy crap! Like they are like, let me use green and red and peach and like make this thing, and somehow he gets them all on there, and it looks like a Jim Henson like Muppet sort of like yeah. Over color. Like his stuff's crazy.
Well, and he actually like, did you see the koala bear that he did for like the Australian fires? So it's like a koala with a baby on its back, and it's on like this tree that's just barely there, and it's like all embers on the bottom. And I cried looking at a mini. It's the first time that like a mini ever got to me. I was like, oh my gosh. So that was amazing. That one is the most impactful model I've ever seen.
Wow. Well, I'll have to look that up, because that sounds unbelievable. I don't think I've had that moment yet.
It is. I didn't think that moment was in me. If you'd ever said like, oh, would you ever get emotional? I would have said like, no, what's wrong with you? No. And then I did.
That's awesome. And I think he really gets the how to take the hobby and the craft and make it artistic. And that's always going to be a hard argument. Just because we put paint on models isn't always art. Just as the same as somebody painting a landscape isn't always art either, because it does become kind of a craft and a trade.
There's craftsmanship versus artistic creativity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And some people really get offended by that, but I am like, yeah, no, that's cool. Like, I think being a tradesman and a craftsman's cool.
I think I'm more of a craftsman, to be honest. I
Mhm.
always felt like that. I don't feel like as much of an artist. I never felt like I fit into that environment. I just love the process. Once I got the plan out, I just love doing it. I find it like super soothing. It's almost like that feeling when you're just in that flow state. That's what
Sure.
I'm all about. It's the
That's
execution I like.
well, and understanding about yourself, I'm sure makes it easier for you to look at your pieces and be like, this was a great use of my time. Where it always feels like that the artistic driven people will always look at their stuff and be like, nah, nah, I'm killing myself for this and I hate it.
Yeah, and I think when I was trying to be, I probably did feel like that more like in art school, like, oh, it's just not enough. But then when I'm like, let's get the skill, yeah, then you can look. Yeah, I just agree. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I'm trying to live my life now under the idea that first idea, best idea. Stop doing this like overthinking things. It's not worth it. Look at it, go get into it, get into the flow of it, have fun with it. Because if you, it's not, it's not worth messing up your fun time over, like a little piece of plastic. Because at the end of the day, they're just toys until they're koalas on burning ember. Like you have to
Yeah,
take it to that level before and I don't have that. So not in this anyways. At least I don't think I do.
well, and I
So
think
yeah.
that's why I like doing other people's ideas because I like them to come up with the ideas, and honestly, that takes the pressure off of me a little bit.
Right.
But if I am looking for like a super creative idea, like I had no guidance when I did that big Kingdom Death commission. I would spend time like meditating, or like as I was falling asleep, I would be like trying to think of what you want to do with this. Like that's how I came up with like my beholder idea with the different lightings coming from different sides. It's like this almost trance-like state I would try to get into to try to like picture the most creative thing I could. It's not easy. It does not come natural to me. Is my point.
Yeah. Well, you could have fooled me because it's every time I see what you do, it feels very effortless, and it just like the every time you produce something, I always look at your pieces and I'm just like really pleased and just blown away at like, oh, Nick's doing it again. Like this is awesome. And it's really great to see you produce that way.
That's awesome. And maybe I'm not taking pictures of the ones that aren't producing that way. No, I'm just kidding. No, like usually if it's for a client, I'm trying to blow them away. I can't send work that I don't like love 100%. It's tough. It's a flaw, but I'm glad I fooled you into thinking that it's effortless and I'm not worrying about it much because I'm super hard on myself as far as trying to learn. I'm always going to keep trying to learn and trying to improve, look at my stuff from before, see how I can do it better, especially like doing a Gloomhaven commission recently is so fun to see the difference. So I'm
Sure.
glad I'm putting.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. So, what are your plans for the future of the company? Do you think that you'll ever get to the point where you'll have like multiple painters working under you, or are you going to just be a solo commission studio?
I thought maybe I would, but I'm not sure that it's something I'm interested in. I think I'm pretty, unless it was somebody who like sculpted or did something that I couldn't do, I'm not sure it's something I'm interested in. Now, we had a 3D printer when we first got started, and then it wasn't supported anymore. And I would be interested in doing like more 3D printing again because that would elevate the basis and stuff to a level that unfortunately like I don't have the same access to as easily as like when we had that. And now 3D printers are way more affordable too. So
Yeah, they are amazingly affordable. I took advantage of the Black Friday sales on a couple things, and yeah, I have printed way more things in the last like 4 months than I had in the previous like 2 years of owning a 3D printer because the quality's better, everything's better.
quality and just the cost of printing tiny skulls versus buying a pack of skulls. I'm like super into like like logically like try to save some money.
That's awesome. Well, Nick, do you have anything else you want to add before we get off? Because we've been talking about an hour now.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of like what I would want to talk about, and I appreciate you going into that stuff with me. I don't know what I'm saying. But it's been good. Like anything I wanted to cover, we covered. And anything, you know, I just find it an honor that you're interested in what I have to say. Is what I'm trying to say.
I'm absolutely using this quarantine as a time to meet all the people I've been messaging with over the last 2 years, the people who have been motivated me to be better. And you were easily like, I mean, you were the first person I asked for an interview because of that. I was like, oh yeah, I got to talk to Nick. Finally, we have to put a face and voice to the years of us like late night look at this Kingdom Death thing, you know.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I love talking shop with you. I love talking shop with anybody. So if anybody ever has questions or just wants to talk, you message me because I'll do it all day long.
Perfect. And is Facebook the best way to get a hold of you, or is Instagram? How do you prefer to be?
Instagram's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Facebook, like if you find my personal one, would be, but I think their page manager is not great. I hate the messaging on there. So Instagram's probably the best place to find me. It's MinMax_minis. So.
Excellent. Well, I will make sure to send people your way.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.
Thank you for watching another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I so appreciate your support. If you could go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, leave a comment, literally do anything that you can to help get this channel a little bit more traction. I'd really appreciate it. I hate when channels ask every single episode for this. It becomes mundane and monotonous. So I figured I'd just record one of these. That way you only have to hear me do this once, just at the end of every one of my videos. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.